Thanks so much for joining me for Monica May's One Take Live. Today is going to be just a little bit different because it's just going to be me. I just wanted to share some things that I think will resonate with you, especially as we get ready for our annual father daughter tea. There are some things that I needed to unpack. So I think it's all going to kind of line up nicely. All right. But before we start, I've got to ask you to please help us spread the word. Tap like and click the share button to invite your family and friends and followers to be a part of this conversation. One Take Live streams, as you know, on Facebook, YouTube. We're also on Spotify, Apple, or any of your favorite streaming platforms. I was driving with my husband the other night and I just scrolled and I came upon an article that stunned me. It stunned me to the point of tears because it was almost like a eureka moment. You ever have one of those where it's like, oh man, this is it? And it was titled by an author. She's a blogger. She's on Facebook. Her name is Tina Fey. And I got to give her major shout out for this one. But it's people who grew up with very little affection tend to develop these 10 traits later in life. And these according to different psychologists. And I'm going to cite them as well. So growing up in my household, I came from a very good home. I mean, there was love there if you think about it in terms of keeping a roof over your head and food on the table. But the simple words, I love you. What are your thoughts? Conversations directed totally at me, with me, a discussion, they just didn't happen. Now, my sister, who's 7 years older, probably doesn't see it like that. She had both of our parents with her at the time. I'm the middle kid. My younger sister had mom and dad, different mom, with her for like 10 years, and they don't see it as I do. I had them for maybe 2 years max. I saw things a lot different and I felt a lot different and I felt awkward in many ways. And reading this article made me understand me. So I wanted to share it with you and really impart on you the importance of both parents being in the house. It's a necessity. It doesn't always happen. And it's not just in Black families. So don't even think that, but I think there has to be interaction between a mom. She brings the warmth and that how you doing and that pat and that hug. And she's typically the one to say I love you. And then the dad, he's your first love. So growing up without much affection can leave a profound impact on people, Tina says. It often shapes their personalities and creates certain traits that stick with them all the way into adulthood. I guarantee you, I'm going to run through these traits. You're going to find you in there. Psychology delved deep into the subject and it shed light on the common patterns that emerge in individuals who lack attention or affection in their formative years. There's 10 traits, and I want to dive in right now. The first one is emotional self-sufficiency. Those who grew up with little affection often build walls around themselves. Sound familiar? They develop a sense of what's called emotional self sufficiency. It's an availability to navigate through life relying primarily on their own emotional strength. This tendency to be emotionally self reliant is one of the most common traits observed in individuals who are deprived of affection in their early years. Carl Rogers is a renowned psychologist, and he says what is most personal is most universal. And this rings true, especially for those of us who have learned to navigate our emotions single handedly. Remember, these don't always, they're not going for everybody, but this doesn't mean that these individuals are incapable of forming emotional bonds. It just means that they've learned to rely on themselves first and foremost. The second is difficulty trusting others. Now, trust is a tricky thing, isn't it? Growing up, affection wasn't abundant in my household. And I never really saw this one in myself. But when I dug a little bit deeper, I realized that I found it tough to trust people and was always cautious about letting others in. I couldn't let you know my true feelings. This hesitance to trust isn't uncommon among those of us who lacked affection during our formative years. It's a protective mechanism. So if you notice someone who appears to be guarded or has difficulty trusting others, remember, it's not about you. It could stem from a lack of affection that happened in their past, craving for affection. Here's something raw and honest. People who grew up with very little affection often nurse a deep, unspoken craving for it in their adult lives. It's like a hidden void, an insatiable hunger that lurks just beneath the surface. This longing often manifests itself in different forms. Some might seek validation constantly. We're just looking for approval for others from others. Others might strive to excel in everything they do, hoping that it'll earn the approval and affection, the attention that they crave. Others look for affection in all the wrong places. This can often ring true for women who didn't have that nurturing or their father or someone who could reassure them. I know it's hard, but it's okay now. Acknowledging and understanding this trait can help you navigate your emotions better and help you seek the help that you need. People not only gain understanding through reflection, one psychologist says. This quote is a powerful reminder that understanding and acknowledging this deep seated craving can be the first step toward our healing and change. Strong independence. This is a trait that is often celebrated, but for those of us who grew up with little affection, it could be a double edged sword. I've seen this in myself and others around me. We become survivors. We learn to fend for ourselves at an early age. I left home at the age of 17. Yep. I went to college. For those of you who know me, you know how I got into college. You know I didn't take any of the SAT or ACT exams. I did not get in the traditional way. That's a story for another time and one that I'm willing to share. But here's the double edge. This strong sense of independence can be empowering, but it can also make it really challenging for us to accept help from others. It's as if accepting help or support is a sign of weakness, a betrayal of self reliance. Like, I can do it, I can do it. We've cultivated this over the years. Now, Abraham Maslow, that's another psychologist, said what is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself. So that means that recognizing our fierce independence and how it might actually prevent us from forming meaningful connections with others is an essential step towards personal growth. You got to realize that there's a problem here. Being independent doesn't mean you have to do everything alone. Embracing that fact alone can open doors to deeper and more satisfying relationships in our lives. Now, here's one that if you truly know me, you know this about me. Number five, unusual empathy. Here's something that you might not expect. Those who grew up with little affection often develop a heightened sense of empathy. It seems counterintuitive, I know, but it is a trait I've observed in many people, including myself. Having experienced emotional scarcity is what I'll call it. We tend to be more attuned to the emotional needs of others. That kid that was always getting picked on, the one that was always being bullied. While I was bullied for a moment, I would help the others who were being bullied. Yeah, I had my share of fights. Ooh, gosh. We can pick up on subtle cues. We can feel the pain of others, offer compassion because we know what it's like to feel emotionally neglected. Another psychologist chimes in on this one, Carl Jung. He says, knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Now, that quote encapsulates the notion that our struggles often equip us with the tools to understand and help others who are dealing with similar issues. So, while growing up without affection can be challenging, it can also foster a deeper sense of empathy, allowing you to connect with others on a deeper level. Number six is a biggie also, fear of rejection. It's no secret that those who grew up with little affection often carry a heightened fear of rejection into their adult lives. The absence of affection in our early years can lead us to subconsciously believe that we're not worthy of love or acceptance. Now, this fear manifests in various ways, such as you might hesitate to express your feelings or you avoid close relationships altogether to prevent the potential pain of being rejected or left. I realized I have an attachment anxiety. When I first got with my husband, every Tuesday we talked all the time, but for some reason on Tuesdays I'd say, "This is so silly. You still here?" Thinking that he's going to walk away at some point. Well, Eric Erickson is another well-known psychologist, and he says life doesn't make any sense without interdependence. We need each other. We definitely do. And the sooner we learn that, the better for us all. That quote highlights for me the importance of overcoming our fears and embracing vulnerability. That comes with interdependence. Yeah. Understanding and acknowledging this fear of rejection is a crucial step toward healing, allowing for healthier and more fulfilling relationships in the future. Notice I say in the future, you have to know yourself before you get involved in a serious relationship. I'm going to share something with you a little bit later on. Number 7, struggling with intimacy. This point hits close to home for many individuals who grew up with this lack of affection that we're talking about today. We often struggle with intimacy in our adult relationships. It's not that we don't want to be close, but the vulnerability that intimacy requires can feel daunting and unfamiliar. You don't want that person to leave you, but there is a connection there. But is it only that intimate connection? This struggle can lead to patterns of pushing people away, even when deep down you yearn for that closeness. I know, again, very double edged. It's a tough journey, but recognizing all of these difficulties, and especially this one with intimacy, is the first step toward building stronger and more fulfilling connections in the future. Overcompensation in relationships. This one rings true too. Let's be raw, let's be honest here. Some people who grew up like I did with just, very little affection tend to overcompensate in their relationships later on in life. They often give more than they receive. We're driven by a subconscious desire to feel needed and appreciated. We end up pouring our hearts and soul into our relationships, often at the expense of our own well being. It's as if we're trying to fill this love void that we missed out on childhood through our adult relationships. Albert Ellis, another psychologist, said this: the art of love is largely the art of persistence. However, it's crucial to remember love is a two-way street. I'll say that again. Love is a two-way street. Giving too much without receiving can lead to exhaustion and resentment over time. So it's okay to step back, take care of yourself, and ensure that you're receiving the love and respect that you deserve in your relationships. Another counterintuitive point, at least for me, is number 9: exceptional resilience. People who grew up like I did, and that's with, uh, emotional insecurity, often develop an exceptional level of resilience. Despite the challenges that we face, we learn to adapt and thrive. We transform our adversities into strengths. We experience these things, and it makes us experts almost at navigating hardships. It enables us to bounce back from setbacks with remarkable tenacity. Psychologist Martin Seligman, and I hadn't heard of him, but I did some research, and so did Tina, said this, and I was like, bingo. You all know that I left a great job back in 2019. Yep. One day I just walked away from it. I'd had enough. Again, a story for another time, but one that I am willing to share. Seligman said it like this: it's not how much money we make that ultimately makes us happy, it's whether or not our work fulfills us. That was true for me, and it is true for me today. This quote rings particularly true for those of us who've had to find fulfillment and happiness within themselves due to a lack of affection in our upbringing. Resilience is a powerful trait that can turn life's challenges into opportunities for growth. It's a testament to the human spirit and our ability to endure and overcome. And our final point on this journey is another true one for me, and it's number 10, perfectionism. Wow. I'm a Virgo. Yeah. So that's one part of it. But perfectionism is something that I've had to grapple with all my life. It's a trait that's also common with people who grew up with little to no affection. Many of us strive for perfection in an attempt to earn, again, the approval, the attention, all of those things that we craved in our childhood. I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought, well, not really sure what what I thought, but I've always set high standards for myself and often pushed myself really hard in the process. It's almost as if we're trying to prove our worth through our achievements. Well, Carl Rogers, last time I'm going to quote a psychologist, said the good life is a process, not a state of being. It is a direction, not a destination. So let that quote serve as a reminder that we are more than our accomplishments. Our worth isn't determined by our ability to achieve perfection, but by who we are as human beings, as individuals. Recognizing and addressing these tendencies, especially this one towards perfectionism, can lead to a healthier self image and a more balanced approach to life's challenges. So, this is going to be just a short conversation. And it's not a conversation because there's nobody on the other end. It's just me and you. I wanted to wrap this, but I wanted to share a little bit more about my upbringing. Now, don't get me wrong, it was good. I was loved. It was just never said. And like I said earlier, I think that back in those days, I was born late 50s, that, the roof over your head and the food on your table, those were expressions of love, and I get it, but you need more than that. And when it comes to family, kids need both parents. Mothers, I said it earlier, provide the warmth and that security. Dads provide that security. And especially for girls, he's her first love experience. So she's going to look in every corner for a man like her dad. And if he was absent, she'll be searching in all the wrong places. Trust me, I did. Not ashamed to say that I didn't really trust myself in love because, like in number 8, I overcompensated. Oh my God. I'd get into these relationships, y'all, pour everything into them. And I'm like, he is just not that into you. You know that old saying. And there was a book that they did about it. But I, I, I would get broken down behind it. So I didn't find true love until my 50s. 56 to be exact. Yep. And I've been happily married now for 8 of those 10 years of our relationship. Why did I do this today? I did this for one, as the middle child of a family of with an absentee dad. There was nowhere to get answers from, and I just felt like I was a little strange. Things were missing, they weren't adding up. I mean, my dad and I were connected. I could call him, and if he was in town, he was a musician, he would typically answer, and there would be times that we would spend time together. But I wanted more. I wanted consistency. And that's something that I think most girls, most kids, period, want. So I want to make a plea. The plea is that when we're looking to start families, and sometimes our sexual relationships, we're not looking, we're just looking for pleasure. But if a child is on the other part of that, if that's what comes out of that union, you got to put some things down. First of all, you got to realize who you lay down with. But I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to show outcomes. And the outcomes don't always turn out like you may think. I'm successful. Yeah, right. But there's a whole lot of stuff. I read you 10 things that I've been dealing with all my life. It hasn't been easy. But I really want dads and their girls to connect, because I don't want these girls looking like I did for love in every wrong place. Um, I have a nonprofit, Let's Spill the Tea, where I do connect mothers and daughters through conversation on tough topics. We talk about sex, we talk about drugs, we talk about careers, we talk about moms dating, we talk about when the girls should start dating, we talk about social media, education, careers. We talk about everything, but it's the sex tip that is really the hardest one for a girl to have conversation with her mom about. But a few years ago, fathers and even some uncles and some granddads and godfathers, they wanted in on the gig too. So we developed the slogan, real men can spill the tea with their daughters. And we developed the same 90-minute tea. And I have to share something with you. In most instances, it is more emotional than it is when we have the mother daughter team. We always have a mental health person. I don't do any workshop without having a mental health person there with me, because I can open you up. I know all of the words to say, all the buttons to push, everything. But I need somebody who can put you back together. So that's why we always have a mental health. Sometimes they're women. Sometimes you won't even know that they're in your midst. This particular one, when we have a tea for fathers and daughters, June 8th, you're going to know him because he's a tall guy. We have nicknamed him Jono the Giant. His name is Jonathan Gustav, and he is a licensed psychotherapist, and he's with No Limit Counseling and Education. He's also an author. His book is When Giants Get Fed Up. I'm not going to reach for it now. From Anger to Ambition. He's a dynamo, and I'm so happy to have him. He's been on the radio with me several times, but never on my podcast. Our schedules conflict too much, but we will get him on. But again, our next father daughter tea is Saturday, June 8th, 11 a.m. at CB Bistro, and it is free. I've got gifts. I should have had the gift in the frame with me, but I have gifts for everyone. I've got journals for dads. Okay, why am I giving dad a journal? Men don't want to write, but suppose they were able to write. Just like a woman can sit down and write out her thoughts, you should be doing this, because that's part of your own therapy. Yeah, going outside for counseling is good. But what about if you could just start by writing out your thoughts? So that's what we encourage these dads to do. And I have a very special gift that I give them along with something else. So everybody walks out of there with something. You know that the food is going to be good. You know, Chef George is going to do his thing. So go to info at letsspillthetea.org. Info at letsspillthetea.org. Again, the girls need to be 14 to 21. Why do we call it Let's Spill the Tea? Because the tea is gossip. I don't know nothing about no real tea. Now, y'all should know that by now, but I just have fun with the slogan. So let's spill the tea with Monica May. You're going to do that June 8th. And I'm looking, and it's very intimate. I'm only looking for 20 dads and 20 girls. And if you have multiple daughters, I'm fine with that. Again, these girls need to be between the ages of 14 to 21. Anyway, I did this today to really not only promote our brunch that's coming up, but really to unpack my aha moment. I am so grateful to Tina Fey. I've already hit her up, and she's not the comedian. No, not her. But she's a blogger. She's on Facebook. Fey is the spelling of her last name. But I wanted to share some of my own hiccups so that you can see I have my own demons and dragons to slay. But this article by Tina just hit it for me, and I wanted to share it with you. Sisters, there is nothing wrong with us. There's everything right with us. We just are wired a little bit different. That's all. And when you can take a moment to be honest with yourself, that there's something that I need to connect here, then you're really hitting on something. Some of us need therapy. I've done therapy on a couple of occasions, and I always share my very first time was with someone who didn't look like me, and it was very uncomfortable. She didn't know how to pull anything out of me. I've had a male therapist before, and I've had females, sisters too. I think it's necessary, but I think you have to do it when you think it's right. I've been on medication before because I've struggled with depression. There is nothing that I won't share with you because, in my quest to be the best woman that I can possibly be, I have to dig deep. I have to dig deep. And I got to tell you, this article, the 10 traits of people who have had little to no affection in their life, especially growing up, really unpacked it for me. And I really hope that it did something for you. I have not edited. I've only put it into my own voice. So again, people who grew up with very little affection tend to develop these 10 traits later in life, according to various psychologists that I cited. And it's written by Tina Fey, but it fit Monica May so well. And I'm certainly hoping that it did something for you. I hope again that you will join me on any of my platforms. Of course, it's Spotify, Apple, or any of your favorite streaming platforms. And you can always reach out to me at info@letspillthetea.org. I thank you so much for being with me today.